Hello, welcome back to another TBR video. My name is Elena. Welcome to our channel. Please subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, all those things. So this is my first TBR video of 2025, and I'm psyched because I have revamped my TBR board, which you see behind me. Same board, new cards. You may have seen in our last video that I recently did a huge purge of my collection. I unhauled anything that was duplicates or books that I knew I was not going to get around to. So I've updated the board with cards that reflect what's in my collection and what I want to read this year. The categories have slightly changed, so let me run you through the plan. There are 5 rows, 5 categories. I will go through each row twice to end up with 10 books for my February TBR. Using a random number generator on my iPad, I will choose a number 1 through 10, and that will determine which card I pull from each row. The top and bottom rows are the same category. They are my physical TBR. I really want to prioritize getting through the books that I already own. So I will end up with 4 books on my final list that are from my physical TBR. When my iPad chooses a number for me, I will pull out that card on the row, and they look like this. Focus on the card, not me. There we go. I've color-coded them, so this purpley gray outline means that it's from my physical TBR, and I've covered it with a scratch-off sticker. I buy these super cheap on Amazon. You can get a whole roll of them for like $4. The next row of blue cards, these are books that are on my 25 priority reads for 2025. Then we have green, and these are all prompts from my book bingo board in my reading journal. And yellow is series that I'm either in the middle of or really want to get into this year. I don't always do the TBR board. I kind of have been switching off months. Some months I'll just mood read, but there is something so nice about not having to waste time choosing your next book. When you just have a TBR list that's picked out for you, ready to go, and you can just run through it. As soon as you finish a book, pick another one off the list and get it done that way. A lot of my best reading months come from this TBR board. So I'm excited, especially with it being all refreshed for the new year. And in future months, when I pull a card that I have already read the book of from mood reading or just, a book I've already gotten to, anytime that happens, I choose out of a jar of viewer recommendations. So please leave your recommendations in the comments so that the next time I do this, I have a good pool of recommendations to choose from. All right, let's start pulling these cards. The first number we got is 3. Book number 1, For She Is Wrath. Next, from the 25 in 2025 category, we have number 5. Book number 2, A Deadly Education. From the prompts category, we got 8. For the first prompt, we have one that everyone else has read. From series, we have number 10. Okay, for a series I've been wanting to get into, Discworld. Back to physical TBR, we have number 7. Next up, I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons. Physical TBR again, we have number 9. Another physical TBR book, we've got A Magic Steeped in Poison. From 25 in 2025, we have number 2. I can get it. There we go. I'm so glad I pulled this one. Okay, the series that I'll be continuing is the Emily Wilde series. Okay, for prompts I got 8, but I've already done 8, so I'm going to redraw that one. Okay, now we got 10. And for my second book bingo prompt, a classic. Out of the series, we have number 9. Another series I've been dying to start, Scythe. And the last physical TBR, also a 9. And for the last book on my physical TBR, oh my gosh. Okay, we got The Shadow of the Gods. Time for me to pull all of these books out for you and we can go through the final list together. Okay, as usual, we have quite the hefty stack here. So let's discuss what fate has chosen for me to read this month. First up, we have For She Is Wrath by Emily Varga. Now, keep in mind, I haven't actually read any of these books yet, but I believe this is a Pakistani retelling of The Count of Monte Cristo, and our main character is imprisoned for a crime she didn't commit, and even worse, she was put there in prison by, among others, the guy that she was in love with. So, ouch. That's kind of a rough way to go about dumping someone. But yeah, that would make me pretty wrathful. So I hope she gets her revenge, or we'll just see how this unfolds. This was a nominee last year in the Goodreads Choice Awards in the category for YA fantasy. So that's a good sign. Clearly people were into it, and I'm psyched. Also, this will fulfill my book bingo prompt of a sword on the cover. Don't you think? Next up, we have A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I really like the other Naomi Novik book that I have read, which is Spinning Silver. So I have a good feeling about this one. It's nice to have a shorter book on the TBR as well when you have 10 books on your TBR. And I've heard this is like a dark academia, school setting, YA fantasy situation set at a school full of monsters. I've heard great things about this series. It's been recommended to me by multiple friends and viewers, so definitely I've been meaning to get to this for a while, so I'm glad it's on the TBR. Next, for the prompt, one that everyone else has read, I went to my physical TBR on Goodreads. I put them all into a little list and I sorted by the books that are the most rated. So this is the book in my physical TBR that the most people have read and reviewed on Goodreads, and it is Heartstopper. This has been on my TBR before, and I didn't end up getting around to it. But it's a graphic novel, it's romantic, it's YA, this is February, it's the month of love, I think this is a great sort of Valentine's Day romancy pick. It rounds out the list really nicely, so I'm glad it's here and I'm ready to dive into this. It's a queer contemporary romance in graphic novel form about Charlie, an openly gay, high-strung overthinker, and Nick, a kind, soft-hearted rugby player, and they go to an all-boys British private school situation. Lots of fun tropes to explore. Next, I will be getting into, finally, at long last, the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. And I'm choosing to start. There are multiple starting points for this series. I think there are at least 3 that I've heard of, but I'm going to choose to start here with Guards. I actually received this book as a blind date with a book from a really cute bookshop that Aaron and I visited last year, and it's been sitting on my shelf, and I just feel like I know I'm going to like this. I've never read Terry Pratchett before, but obviously he's a legendary fantasy author. I am a huge, huge fantasy fan, and I've heard these books are very like fun and unique and full of adventure and some laughs. We got a funky looking dragon on the cover. I mean, what's not to like here? Next up, we have I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons by Peter S. Beagle. This is supposed to be kind of a twist on the fairy tale genre. I think it's supposed to be very funny, maybe a little bit cozy. Our main character, who goes by Robert, has inherited his dad's job of dragon exterminator. Except he doesn't want to exterminate dragons. He likes them, and who can blame him? Dragons are freaking cool. He ends up teaming up with a princess and a prince to go on some sort of adventure, possibly dealing with this big old dragon here on the cover. And I've heard that this is like a fun and funny, low stakes read. And next up, look at this cover. I mean, it really gets me. So this is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy I. Lin. And this is another cozy-ish fantasy that features two sisters. One of the sisters accidentally poisons the other, and then she enters a magical tea-making competition to try to save her sister who she poisoned, which, it's like the least you can do, I love the idea of the magic system having to do with brewing tea, and the cover's so gorgeous. This has got to be good, right? Next, we have a placeholder. I am holding up Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, which I have already read, and I've read the sequel, which is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This month, the third one is coming out, Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. I am so freaking excited for it. It's one of my most anticipated releases of the year. So I am so psyched that I pulled this card. I probably would have ended up reading this anyway, one way or the other. So as soon as that comes out, I will be getting my hands on it. I don't think I have long to wait. These books are about a professor of fairies. She studies and researches them. And there's a romance situation that I quite like. It's a very refreshing, out-of-the-box romance, not cookie cutter, not a shadow daddy situation. All of the classic fairy elements are really fun. Exploring the fairy world is awesome. These are just delightful. I mean, I recommend these all the time. So you've probably heard it so many times on our channel. Erin loves them too. So yeah, definitely looking forward to getting into the third one. Okay, for the prompt, reading a classic. I did want to read a classic this year. It's so tempting to just pick like Pride and Prejudice or something, or another one that I've already read, like Jane Eyre. But I thought I would, challenge myself a little bit and read a classic that I've had on my shelves for a while and I've never read it and never read it in school. What am I talking about? I am talking about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Casey. I'm sure everyone else knows how to pronounce that author's name except me, but this is a classic. I remember friends of mine having to read this in school. I don't know that much about it, but I think it's one of those classics that people do tend to enjoy. You know how there are some that you look back on that you were forced to read by your high school English teacher and you just hate them? I mean, it's happened to everybody, but I seem to recall that people enjoyed this book. What is this about? Okay, according to Goodreads, this story is about a man named McCurfy, and he's like a fun-loving trickster type, but he ends up in a mental hospital, and it's run by a tyrannical nurse. So McMurphy decides to rally the inmates together and take a stand, I guess to maybe like improve their living conditions at the hospital or something. And it's sort of them versus this very, very strict nurse. Goodreads describes it as an exuberant and devastatingly honest portrayal of the boundaries between sanity and madness. Sounds like a trip, and it's a trip I will be taking in February. Let's see. If you have read this, let me know in the comments. Am I going to like this? I'll still read it, even if you don't think I will, but I'm just curious. Next up, we have a series, a YA dystopian sci-fi series that I am so ready to sink my teeth into. It's the Scythe series by Neil Shusterman. These books are set in a so-called utopia where there's no more war, there's no more hunger, there's no more poverty. It's perfect. Something tells me it's really not, because these books never are. It's a dystopian sci-fi, right? In this world, there are people called scythes, and they are the only ones permitted to end human life. And they have to keep the population at a manageable quota. Our main characters, Citra and Rowan, are apprenticed to a scythe. They don't want to be, but I guess somehow it's out of their control, and they have to learn, how to be this very, very dark role in their society. I already bought the entire series of these, so I really hope I like this. And lastly, we got something to really challenge me. This looks like it's going to take me a while, doesn't it? This is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is an epic dark fantasy multi-POV situation, Game of Thrones style, in a world where the gods have all perished. Some humans have inherited little fragments of the gods' power, and those are referred to as the Tainted. And they are, I think, being hunted down by war bands or something in this. There's at least 3 main characters, all on their own separate quests with motives like revenge or proving themselves, that sort of thing. And I know this series is really beloved, and I have been wanting to get into something a little bit more dark and epic this year. Now that I am all caught up on the Stormlight archives, I just need something a little bit dense and serious, But also with cool dragons. I mean, look at the scale of this dragon with that little teeny tiny little baby person down there. I mean, yeah, that looks cool. I'm into that. All right, that is the TBR for February. Will I make it through all 10 books? Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. Don't hold me to it, but you can kind of hold me to it. We'll see how it goes. I will report back at the end of the month and let you know which ones of these I really, truly loved. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below with a recommendation that I can use for my recommendations jar in the next TBR video. And please subscribe if you have not done so already. We so appreciate every single subscriber. And with that, until our next video, see you soon.